Hey, this is Pastor Scott with Cross Christian Fellowship, and welcome to our study on fasting. Jesus has been teaching us about prayer and then about fasting, and we did an initial kind of fasting 101 study in the previous study, which you can go back and check out. But we're going to talk a little bit about fasting and how do you actually do it, and are there different types of fasting that you can do. And actually you can see a couple different things in Scripture, and then one just for health benefits. And so we're going to share that right after this. Scripture has many places where individuals have fasted. Jesus is the one who taught about it. Moses taught about it as far as part of the Sabbath day, but there was never really any information about how to do it. It's alluded to in Scripture, but let's break down at least one passage, and then I'm going to talk to you about the three different ways that you can fast. So this passage is out of Judges 20, verse 26. It said, "Then all the children of Israel, that is, all the people, went up and came to the house of God and wept. And they sat there before the Lord and fasted that day until evening. And they offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before the Lord." So this tells you they went until evening. So generally a day, according to Genesis and the Hebrew calendar, was the evening, then the morning was the first day. And so for the Jews, sunset, about 6 p.m. in the evening, started the next day. And so if you had dinner after 6, then, or dinner before 6, if you went from 6 in the evening and then slept through the night and then went to the next evening, and after 6 you ate, that would be a full 24-hour fast, although technically in daylight you had a meal in each of the days, right? So it's a little easier to doing a fast that way, a 24-hour fast, because a good part of that window, the 6 to 8 hours that you're sleeping, is your normal fast, right? That's why we call it break fast or breakfast. And so that's one type of fast where you go at 24 hours. Now, if it's not exactly 24 hours, if it's 25, or let's say you had a late meal and so you go 22 hours or 18 hours, it's still, you're getting a lot of benefit from that physically and spiritually, because you're learning certain things, which we're going to talk about here, of the spiritual benefits and the physical benefits. Now, mostly next week we're going to talk about the health and physical benefits of fasting. Now, that's the kind of the main fast that's there in Scripture. And you'd be doing this, like we talked about last week, if you're mourning, if you're hurt, if you're seeking something from the Lord, if you're going through something and trying to break a sinful habit. We're going to talk more about that as well. A fast is to seek wisdom. It's to spend time in prayer. It's to exclude the world and the pleasures of the world and all that, so that you can be spiritually attuned to what the Lord wants to say. And God can speak to you whether you fast or not. But fasting is just a way of showing your heart before the Lord, because you're sacrificing and you're denying one of your most powerful bodily urges, right, is to eat. But there is another type of fast, and this is out of Daniel. If you remember in Daniel chapter 1, he did a fast of specific foods. Now, some of you have done this to kind of try to find whether or not you're allergic to something. And so you fast from a certain food, or would it be dairy products or wheat products, or, is gluten getting to me, or is the lactose getting to me, or something else causing these allergic reactions? Some have done this just to kind of purify your body. Some people do this on a regular basis to eliminate, any kind of boxed produce, anything that has more than 5 ingredients, that has this MSG or has all these phosphates or dyes or coloring or anything like that. Should probably avoid those to begin with, but some people do that. And a Daniel fast or a Daniel diet he said that he ate the pulp. Really, it doesn't translate well into the English, but it's basically the seed-bearing herbs, which could be spices, fruits, and vegetables. So like the cucumber, and he's eating like apples and that sort of thing that would have the seed in it, right? Might be grapes. Some people think it was just a vegetarian diet. It could be. It doesn't specifically go into it, but it kind of the pulp with seeds is basically, kind of a fruit and veggie diet, as opposed to eating the junk that came from the king's table, which had all kinds of meats. We're not just talking about pork, which he wouldn't have eaten as a Jew anyways, but we're talking about dog and all these exotic things, including rat, squirrel, any kind of rodent. They made these and tried to make delicacies out of them because they didn't follow the dietary laws of the Jews. And so you can have all kinds of things coming down the pipe that is bleh. And so he said, for 10 days, let me just eat this. After 10 days, the guys who ate all this other junk from the king's table, compare them to us. And whatever our countenance, look at our skin tone and other things. If we're doing better than them, then, fine, and this should be pleasing to the king. But if not, then our lives are kind of on the line. But he knew God's law to be true, not to eat those certain things, right? And that is a fast that you can do to the Lord, but it's going to have to be extended. It's not a single day fast, because at any one day you could be like, man, I'm really craving salad. So you have a couple salads and maybe a big salad with, some fillers in there like nuts and stuff like that. Some cheeses where you're like, oh, I'm kind of full. I don't feel like eating anything else. That's really not a fast. A fast is where you set your mind on denying yourself something. Some people do this when it's coming on Lent or whatever, and we don't necessarily practice that. It's not taught in Scripture. But that's where you, like, I'm going to give up sugar, or I'm going to give up, candies or chocolates, or I'm going to give up, actually some people go on a carnivore diet. I'm going to give up, everything else but the clean meats. And so this could be something that is actually beneficial. There's health benefits in this. There's also spiritual benefits in this. Now, you're not showing remorse or something like that when you're doing this type of fast, because generally you're not suffering, right? You're easing your hunger pains by consuming something, maybe 10, 15, 20, 30 days on a fast like this. That's okay. Now, there are things that are called intermittent fasting. Now, intermittent fasting is something that it's more of a new idea, where you take your normal meals, maybe your normal amount of calories, but you condense it down within 6 hours during a day, some 4 hours, and some even extreme like in 2 hours. So you're eating what you'd normally eat in your 2 or 3 meals a day, all in that abbreviated time span. And this is called intermittent fasting, or it's called time-restricted fasting. So normally people do this from like noon to about 2 or 4 or 6, and all the other time they are not eating. Now, this would be not just a one-day thing, because a one-day thing would make this kind of more of a regular fast. But intermittent fasting is something that you do like either as a lifestyle, or you do this for maybe a week, a few days, something like that. And there's really good health benefits in this. But it's also something where the rest of the day you could experience hunger pains, and it could give you time for prayer and just reading and sitting before the Lord and seeking the Lord. So that's a very viable option. Now in this, I want to cover a couple verses, couple things that you should and shouldn't do when you're fasting, right? When you're fasting, you should drink your fluids. It could be water. It could be water with a little apple cider vinegar, a capful into a cup or a glass. Don't take things with sugar. Don't take things that have protein, like, hey, I'm fasting, but you're drinking this protein shake. That kind of substitutes for an entire meal. Unless you're going to do that for a long time. I'm only going to drink protein shakes for a week, and this is kind of my dedicated fast to the Lord, then it would be under a different type of fast, right? But if you're fasting and you're saying, well, I'm going to have my coffee, but you have loads of cream that has a lot of calories and fats in it that you can burn, not really fasting, is it? So, but you do need water, so stay hydrated. Sometimes you can put some lemon juice in it, some apple cider vinegar, sometimes both. Even a sugar substitute that isn't artificial, something like a stevia, you might want to put in there because it doesn't have any calories, so you're not adding calories and overcoming your fast, right? So something that has a non-caloric bump in it, and that could be like monk fruit, this sort of thing, right? But you need to have that water. And if you feel a little dehydrated, then add just a tab of salt in the water as you're drinking, or just a tab on your tongue, just a little bit, and drink that down, and that will help with the dehydration. So do drink liquids, but do pray and do read, or listen to audio files, listen to worship music. It does you no good to fast and not spend some time in prayer with the Lord, right? It could be a long time, or it could be intermittent times. You pray for 5 minutes here, pray for 10 minutes there, 5 minutes here, 20 minutes there, where you're getting this time alone with the Lord and you're seeking His face. That's important. And reading is important because oftentimes the Lord will speak to you through the scriptures, right? So reading and getting into that is so important. The don'ts, those are 3 things you should do, right? Drink your water, pray and read. The don'ts are, don't start a long fast, like I'm going to fast for 3 days if you've never fasted before. If you've never fasted before, just start with one meal, right? Skip like your noon meal or something like that, and then take that specific time, your lunchtime, pray and read and seek the Lord. And then you learn what it's like to do this, because it's pretty much a shock value to your body. And sometimes if you try a long fast and you've never done it, and then you're 3 or 6 hours into it and you fail, well, it's because you just haven't disciplined yourself. You haven't learned. But then you can condemn yourself like, hey, I tried, but I failed. What good am I? I'm no good to God. And you could fall into that trap. Don't do that. Just take it little steps at a time. Do one meal 1 week. Do a meal and cut down on the next meal the next week if you're going to do it on a weekly basis, right, type of thing. And then go to 2 meals, right, and then stretch it to a 18 to 24 hour period, and that will be good. The don'ts are, like I said, don't start a long fast if you've never done it before. Don't fast on heavy workout days or physical exertion. If you've got a very, very physical job and people are dependent on you, especially for safety reasons, right? When you fast, you'll tend to be weakened, obviously, because your body's now got to go to reserve. It doesn't convert it very well sometimes. It'll also cause some brain fog. So if you're operating heavy machinery or you're doing critical care for somebody, try not to fast, right? Don't do it on days like that unless you're really used to fasting and your body adapts and is really good at at doing that, which your body will begin to learn how to fast, and it becomes easier and easier, right? And your body becomes adept at quickly switching over to reserves and to feed the brain and the muscles. So also, people will fast for weight loss. It's not good. It could be used as a tool to help your body in health benefits, but one of those benefits isn't the weight loss, because your body's only going to rebound and bounce back. So if you go on these starvation diets and you've done anything like that, you know that your body just kind of bounces back to the weight that you were before. Oh yeah, I lost 5 pounds, 8 pounds, and then our zoop comes right back, because your body just triggers and it knows, hey, I'm just going to pump the insulin out. I'm going to get us back up to our reserves. Bank account went low, so we're just going to start storing more, right? And so it's not a good tool for that. It's a good tool for your health, but not for dropping weight, because your body will react to try to just put it back on. There's other methods to do that. You can visit our health class on our college site, ccfcollege.com, right? So those are the big no-nos in this. And the idea here is that, remember, we're going to go into some of the other benefits health-wise, but the spiritual benefits are overcoming a sin, right? Nehemiah prayed and fasted for wisdom. You had Samuel, who called for a fast because the whole nation had sinned against God. Nehemiah too, basically, because the nation had sinned against God. When we have, we just feel out of sorts with God, that's a good way to renew our hearts before Him. God doesn't take pleasure in our stomachs grumbling or growling, right? But He takes pleasure in our commitment, in taking our relationship serious and learning to say no to our base instincts, our natural man, the old man, the worldly person, right? To be able to conquer the flesh. And that's part of showing our commitment to God, is showing our resistance to the enemy of God, and that's the world, right? That's the flesh. So as we're going through this, it helps in so many ways. And in Isaiah, God talks about a fast that breaks the yoke of sin. So sometimes we can snap sin if we learn to fight the flesh, and that's part of the discipline that comes from breaking habitual sin. I just can't seem to get over this sin. Well, one of the ways is to begin to discipline and train your body and your mind to say, I'm not going to obey my body, I'm going to obey my spirit, I'm not going to eat. And then that translates over to, I'm not going to obey my body to go sin or take drugs or look at things I shouldn't look at or participate in these other things or say something or do something, or because now we're taking mastery over our body and over our mind to not give in to the base and pulse instincts that come. And I call them pulse because they kind of come to you and nag you, and then if you resist them, they kind of go away. Okay, so that wraps it up. Fasting is used for spiritual and health benefits. It's something that primarily you want to use it for spiritual, but if you practice it on a regular basis, there are phenomenal health benefits, which we'll talk about next week. And if you are being helped by these videos, I pray that you would share them, like them, and that way they get put out more on the internet and social media, and it's just going to help others. And so that would be a blessing to us and to your family and friends. So until next week, we want to say God bless you, be happy, and be fasting, right? All right, we'll see you later.